Phoenix Force, comics.
The Phoenix Force is famous for its central role in one of the most influential storylines in American superhero comics, the Dark Phoenix Saga, and is frequently linked to Jean Grey. In 2009, Jean Grey's The Dark Phoenix was ranked as IGN's 9th greatest comic book villain of all time. Wizard magazine's list of top 100 villains ranked the Dark Phoenix as 38th.
Publication history.
The Phoenix first appeared in Uncanny X-Men number 101, October 1976, in the guise of Jean Grey, and was created by Chris Claremont and Dave Cockrum.
Fictional character biography.
The Phoenix Force is an immortal and mutable manifestation of the prime universal force of life and passion. Born of the void between states of being, the Phoenix Force is a child of the universe. It is the nexus of all psionic energy which does, has, and ever will exist in all realities of the omniverse, the guardian of creation, and of the dangerously powerful Mkron crystal. The Phoenix is among the most feared beings in all of existence, having the power to cut and regrow any part of the universe, as well as destroy it entirely, which is a part of the Phoenix's purpose, the judgment of the Phoenix, to burn away the obsolete. The Phoenix Force is described as being the embodiment of the very passion of creation, the spark that gave life to the universe, the flame that will ultimately consume it. During its time as a sentient and nameless entity, it traveled the cosmos just like other cosmic beings. At first, the Phoenix Force was a formless mass of energy, but thousands of years ago, it came to Earth, and met a magician named Farron, who worshipped the legendary Phoenix, whose daydream-like visions prompted the Phoenix to adopt the firebird form it is today. He asked the Phoenix to help him by lending its energy to project a stone pillar, which resembled a lighthouse, across the multiverse. The pillar became the lighthouse base for the British super team Excalibur, a team its future host Rachel Summers herself would join. Afterwards, Farron was attacked by Necrom in an attempt to steal the power of the Phoenix. Farron, strengthened by the Phoenix Force, was able to fight back, but Necrom was able to steal a fraction of the Phoenix Force's essence, forcing it to flee back to space in agonized confusion. The Phoenix Force returned to Earth when it felt the mind of a human transcend the physical realm, a mind that resonated with the Phoenix Force's energy. A young Jean Grey had telepathically linked her mind to her dying friend, Annie Richards, to keep Annie's soul from moving to the afterlife. In doing so, Jean's mind was being dragged along to the other side with Annie. Phoenix lent its energy to break the connection, and kept close watch on young Jean, as it felt a kinship with the young mutant. Years later, when Jean was dying on a space shuttle, her mind called out for help and the Phoenix Force answered and saved her, transforming Jean into the Phoenix. The Phoenix remained with the X-Men for only a short time. She prevented the complete destruction of the universe by repairing the damaged energy matrix at the core of the Mkron crystal. During a skirmish with the X-Men's first and most deadly foe, Magneto, Phoenix and Beast were separated from the other X-Men, with each group believing the other to have perished. Phoenix went on a European vacation to gather herself in this new, lonely world. In Greece, Phoenix met a young and handsome man named Nikos, who was later revealed to be Mastermind, a mutant with the powers of illusion. He began to plant the seeds of dissent within her fragile psyche by comparing her to a god and insisting she can do whatever she wants. She would later encounter him again in Scotland, under the guise of Jason Wingard, a handsome 18th-century loyalist, believing him to be both the work of the reality-warping mutant Proteus and the lover of one of her ancestors. After an encounter with the Hellfire Club and manipulation by Mastermind and the White Queen, the Phoenix was transformed into their Black Queen. She broke free of Mastermind's control, but had been transformed into Dark Phoenix. She battled the X-Men and fled to the stars, devoured the energies of the Debari star system to satisfy her hunger as Dark Phoenix, annihilating the 5 billion inhabitants of its fourth planet, and destroyed a nearby Shire observatory vessel which opened fire on her before returning to Earth. There, she was defeated in psionic combat by Professor Xavier, and regained control. The group was then teleported to space by the Shire and given a trial by combat. Just as victory seemed certain for the Imperial Guard, she once again became Dark Phoenix, and ultimately committed apparent suicide on Earth's moon before the eyes of a horrified Cyclops. As originally written, the Jean Grey incarnation of the Phoenix was Jean herself, having attained her ultimate potential as a Psi, becoming a being of pure energy and reforming herself as Phoenix, only to become slowly corrupted by the manipulation of such foes as Mastermind and Emma Frost. Unable to adapt to her enormous power, Jean was driven mad. In order to return Jean to the fold several years later, the storyline was retconned to reveal the existence of the Cosmic Phoenix Force entity, which had created a duplicate body of Jean, believed itself to be Jean, and acted in her place while the real Jean lay in a coma in the ocean, where the Avengers and Fantastic Four would later discover her. This allowed Jean to be revived as a member of X-Factor. The extent to which the duplicate and Jean are separate entities depends on who is writing the character. At the time, some instances portraying them as inherently separate, while others demonstrate a shared consciousness. Part of the Phoenix Force encountered a manifestation of death after committing suicide, and then returned itself to Jean in the cocoon. Horrified by what it had done, Jean rejected it and it went on to join with Jean's clone, Madeline Pryor. This portion of the Phoenix remained with Madeline until she also committed suicide and the Phoenix consciousness rejoined with the awakened Jean. Another possessor of the Phoenix Force is Rachel Summers, Scott Summers and Jean Grey's daughter from the Days of Future Past alternate future. The Phoenix Force bonded with Rachel and Rachel became the next avatar of the Phoenix Force. Rachel is one of the longest reigning avatars of the Phoenix. Rachel never became Dark Phoenix. Rachel has been referred to as the one true Phoenix. During an encounter with Galactus, Rachel Summers, at the time completely overtaken by the Phoenix Force, battled Galactus in an effort to save a planet he was preparing to devour. The Phoenix Force disrupted Galactus' feeding process and thus was easily able to defeat the depleted World Devourer in battle. Galactus accused the Phoenix Force of hypocrisy and revealed to it that its existence in a corporeal state was sustained by robbing energy used to birth future generations. Realizing this to be true, the Phoenix vowed to return to its prior existence of touching all that is while allowing an echo of its power to remain with Rachel's now dominant consciousness. When Rachel's body finally healed, it was just as the Phoenix discovered that its actions on the physical plane were causing potential life to be used up, so it woke her and told her that her powers would be somewhat lessened, as the Phoenix was returning to its natural state. Returning to Earth with all her memories, Rachel finally managed to get back to the future she had come from. While she could not change her past, she and her teammates were able to change the directives of all the Sentinels of the era to preserve all life, thereby ending the genocide that had prevailed for years. On the way back to our time, however, Captain Britain was lost in the time stream and Rachel was eventually forced to switch places with him, because she really did not belong in our time, anyway. She emerged from the time stream about 1900 years in the future and formed the clan Ascani. which was responsible for bringing her brother Nathan to their time to fight Apocalypse. She later encounters Diamanda Nero, which was Apocalypse's High Counselor and Viceroy. She even wanted to overpower him, but was left powerless after shortly being bonded to the Phoenix Force. Later, as an interdimensional portal transported 4 villains from the 616 Marvel Universe into the Ultraverse dimension, the Phoenix Force was pulled into the Ultraverse as well and was critically damaged. Needing a human host to help heal the damage, the Phoenix Force bonded with Prime, and later with Amber Hunt. Amber was unable to control it. She attacked her friends and would have destroyed the planet, if not for the arrival of the X-Men and new Ultra hero Foxfire, who after a long battle were able to separate the Phoenix from Amber and send the cosmic entity back to the Earth 616 universe. Jean Grey would begin to manifest Phoenix Firebirds and tap into its cosmic reserves shortly before her death at the hands of Zorn. The Phoenix Force would return to Earth during the mini-series X-Men, Phoenix, and Song, where it resurrected Jean Grey from her grave. It is not long before she remembers what she has come for: Scott Summers, aka Cyclops. She needs to feed from the energy from his optic blasts, and confused by Jean's emotions thinks she's in love with Scott. She realizes Scott is in love with Emma Frost, former White Queen of the Hellfire Club and headmistress of the Xavier Institute for Higher Learning. Through a number of incidents, including Jean having Wolverine kill her a number of times, Jean trapping herself in a glacier, the Phoenix Force jumping into Emma Frost, and parts of the X-Men being trapped in a Shira-generated event horizon, Jean Grey managed to assert herself and gain control of the Phoenix Force, with emotional support of all the X-Men. Jean then declares that she and the Phoenix Force are truly one entity now, have transcended into the White Phoenix of the Crown. This is signified by a new white and gold costume. As a result of a Shira attack on the Phoenix Force, the entity is currently in an incomplete state and Jean must now search out the remaining parts of the Phoenix Force. The consequences of this were partially addressed in X-Men, Phoenix, War Song, in which a small part of the Phoenix Force joined with the Stepford Cuckoos. After nearly losing control to the Phoenix power, the Stepford Cuckoos developed a secondary mutation, in which their hearts turned to diamond and they were able to imprison the piece of the Phoenix Force. With the failed attack on the Phoenix Force, which ended with Jean Grey escaping their suicide bomb attack and returned to the White Hat Room to restore herself, the Shira still wanted to permanently prevent the ascension of the Phoenix Force. In hopes of eliminating the possibility of a new Omega-level psionic mutant becoming a host for the Phoenix Force, the Shire sent to Earth a commando unit with the purpose to wipe out the Grey Genome and kill Quinion Choir. These death commandos arrived at Rachel's family reunion site and killed all the members of the Grey family besides Rachel and Cable, who weren't present. Afterward, at the graves of the Grey family, Rachel vowed a terrible vengeance on the Shire and was quoted as saying, "I'm not my mom. I'm not the Phoenix. I'm my own woman. And by the time I'm done, they'll wish I were the Phoenix." During the last issue of Kingbreaker, the Phoenix mysteriously abandons Rachel and Corvus during battle with Vulcan's New Guard, leaving them both without its power. As it leaves, Rachel mutters, "Please, not now, Mom," implying that Jean is calling back the missing pieces of the Phoenix Force, and perhaps planning another resurrection. Rachel later says that it was almost like the Phoenix was never with her, for she can't feel it. "I can't hear it. It's like it was never there." Roughly around the same time, back on Earth in San Francisco, the Red Queen and her sisterhood attacked the X-Men, first trapping a sleeping Emma in a psychic barricade by Lady Mastermind. Inside what appears to be the white-hot rumor, possibly just Emma's own mind, a woman resembling Jean Grey appears to Emma and helps her break free of Regan's influence with what appears to be a miniature version of the Phoenix Energy Raptor, thus letting her assist Logan, who has been robbed of a lock of Jean's hair that was in his possession. Madeline uses the hair sample to locate Jean's gravesite, and then attempts to repeat a resurrection ritual with her corpse, but Cyclops had ordered Domino to substitute the body for someone else's, and it somehow causes Madeline to either discorporate or become absorbed into the fake. During a conflict with several Predator's genetically engineered mutant hunters, the Stepford Cuckoos are overwhelmed and knocked unconscious as the fragment of the Phoenix they captured forcefully escaped from the girls' diamond hearts, much to the horror of Cyclops and the rest of the X-Men. A promotional image for the event of Second Coming was released depicting two versions of Hope Summers, the so-called mutant messiah, one angelic, emphasizing her role as a savior, the other as evil and surrounded by the Phoenix Force, depicting her as a destroyer. During the final confrontation with Bastion, Hope turns into what appears to be the Phoenix and blasts Bastion as Wolverine, Colossus, and Emma Watt shocked. Bastion, however, manages to grasp Hope's neck, and states that despite his original programming, he will take great pleasure in killing her. Cyclops blasts his arm, and Wolverine jumps on him, as he tries killing him for Kurt. Hope touches the ground again, saying she's ready now, going full Phoenix Force, blasted Bastion and the dome all at once. Later at a celebratory bonfire, Emma notices the flames around Hope take the shape of the Phoenix, and Emma recalls the Sisterhood attack where Jean freed her from Lady Mastermind's illusion. While fighting the fifth so-called Light, who is out of control, Hope attempts to take some of his powers only to exhaust herself and collapses. She is then contacted by the Phoenix Force, who refers Hope as her child and that the other Lights needed her. Hope then regains consciousness and went back to face Kenji. Due to Phoenix's words, it's implied that the five Lights are all connected to the Phoenix Force. The Age of X reality was created when Legion's mind reacted to Dr. Nemesis' attempt to restore its sanity. A new persona, with new powers, was born, creating the new reality in order to protect Legion's many personalities. This new manifestation of Legion's power took the appearance of Moira McTaggart, in order to confuse Xavier and protect Legion. In this reality, Jean Grey's Phoenix Force ability manifested, causing a tremendous amount of destruction and death in Albany. Though she was presumed deceased when the Air Force bombed the area, a new Phoenix shape emerged from the rubble. Under the name of Revenant, it is not known whether she is Jean Grey, presumably dead after the Albany incident, or a totally new incarnation. She joins Magneto and became part of the Force Warriors. She also states she got lost on her way home and she does not look like herself. When the truth about the Age of X was finally revealed, Legion apologizes to everyone before rewriting the universe and putting everything back the way it was. However, Revenant, who should not even exist, is brought back to Utopia also. Later, as all mutants began to regain their true memories, Revenant is revealed to be actually the mind of Rachel Summers given human form. During the Fear Itself storyline, the Phoenix Force appeared once again to Emma Frost, who's in Utopia's infirmary after she was overwhelmed by the cosmic powers of Juggernaut, who had become the worthy known as Ku'Earth, Breaker of Stone. The Phoenix soon began mocking Emma that Scott Summers would never love her as he loved Jean Grey, revealing also that Jean had reborn and that Emma Frost already knows it. This Phoenix, however, seems to be a side effect of when Emma invaded Juggernaut's mind and began feeding into Emma's fears. As the Phoenix manages to convince Emma that Hope is Jean reincarnated, It tells Emma that she knows what to do. Emma, in a trance-like state, takes her pillow and heads towards Hope, about to smother her to death, and she would have killed Hope if not for Namor's intervention. During the Avengers vs. X-Men storyline, the event has the Phoenix Force returning to Earth, presumably to reclaim Hope Summers, the mutant messiah, which led to a confrontation between the Avengers and the X-Men on how to deal with its arrival, with the Avengers anticipating the destruction that the Phoenix could bring while Cyclops hopes to use the Phoenix Force to restart the mutant population. It has also been revealed that the Phoenix Force was once wielded by a young red-headed girl who became an heir to the legacy of the Iron Fist. As the Phoenix Force nears Earth, the Avengers fight the X-Men on the Moon, while back on Earth, Iron Man and Giant Man prepare a disruptor weapon to kill the Phoenix Force. However, when Iron Man uses the weapon on the Phoenix Force, instead of killing it, the blast forcefully alters the entity and divided it in 5 fragments which bond with Cyclops, Emma Frost, Namor, Colossus and Magic. They defeat the Avengers and head back to Earth with Hope. It has since been theorized that Scarlet Witch's spell of no more mutants angered the Phoenix, and in order to calm the entity, a new host was needed along with 5 acolytes. To succeed in bringing evolution, the acolytes were actually the first 5 new mutants that have appeared around the globe since the decimation of the mutant population, and that was the reason why the Phoenix came to Earth. When the Avengers managed to defeat Namor with a mass assault on him during an attack on Wakanda, his portion of the Phoenix Force gets divided between the other 4 members of the Phoenix Five, making it harder to defeat them. Spider-Man then baits Colossus and Magic into taking each other out when fighting them in a volcano as they begin to argue about the others' recent actions, forcing their portion of the Phoenix to be divided between Emma and Cyclops. When Cyclops invades the mystical city of Kunlun, Lei Kung defends the city on the back of the dragon Shulao the Undying, revealing that the immortal dragon had defeated the Phoenix in a past incarnation. While Cyclops defeats the dragon, Hope is able to absorb its power and defeat Cyclops, who then goes to seek the final portion of the Phoenix Force possessed by Emma Frost. Emma Frost had been using the Phoenix Force to control all of Utopia, read the thoughts of everyone on the planet, take vengeance on anyone who had ever harmed a mutant and dismantle all Sentinels. In a clash against the Avengers with both remaining Phoenix hosts increasingly hostile towards the other, Cyclops defeats Emma and elevates to the level of Dark Phoenix. In the final issue, the X-Men and the Avengers battle the Dark Phoenix, but lose ground swiftly as the Dark Phoenix starts to burn the world. As a last resort, Captain America sends in Hope and Scarlet Witch, who together manage to take down the Dark Phoenix, as Jean Grey appears in Cyclops' mind and convinces him to let go of the Phoenix Force. The Phoenix escapes Cyclops' body and enters Hope Summers. Together, Hope and the Scarlet Witch wish away the Phoenix Force, in the process activating the X gene that allows the creation of new mutants around the world. Even with the Phoenix gone, its effects remain in various ways, with the former Phoenix Five, as well as Magneto, due to his prolonged time on Utopia, suffering from various problems with their powers. Cyclops and Magneto's control over their abilities has regressed back to the level of control they possessed in their first appearances. Emma Frost retains her diamond form but only has erratic control over her telepathy, and Colossus's body fluctuates between his organic and metal parts rather than completely transforming into one or the other, although Magic's powers appear to have been increased to the point where she can channel the power of Limbo on her own.
List of hosts.
Jean Grey, the most powerful and complete Phoenix Force and host combination. Together they have become the White Phoenix of the Crown. Death has stated that Jean is the rightful owner of the Phoenix Force, and that she is not just a host, she is the Phoenix and the Phoenix is her. Rookshire, a Shire that wielded the Phoenix Force through a giant blade, called the Blade of the Phoenix. He almost decimated the Shire Empire. Farron, ancestor of the modern-day Farron whose daydream-like visions prompted the Phoenix to adopt the Firebird form it is today. Necrom, possessed a fraction of the Phoenix Force that would be later become known as the Anti-Phoenix. Fongji, not much is known about this red-haired girl, who lived in Kunlun centuries ago and was trained in the ways of the Iron Fist, as all of the previous guardians of Kunlun decided to keep her existence and the Phoenix Force's connection to the legacy of the Iron Fist a secret until the time of its next return. Madeline Pryor, a clone of Jean Grey that was brought to life by a fraction of the Phoenix Force. Sinister later created 6 clones of Madeline to take the energies from the Phoenix 5, Cyclops, Emma Frost, Colossus, Namor and Magic, and while they managed to siphon some of the energy from the Phoenix, the entity eventually burns away the Madeline clones and free the Phoenix 5, who incinerate Mr. Sinister and his whole city. Rachel Summers, daughter of Jean Grey and Scott Summers from an alternate timeline, has been referred to as the one true Phoenix. She mysteriously lost her connection to the fragment of the blue Phoenix within her, and from this frame onward, the hound markings reappear on Rachel's face. Professor X, Charles Xavier briefly possessed an echo of the Phoenix Force during his time with the Starjammers. Diamanda Nero, she briefly became the host of the Phoenix after her fight with Rachel. However, she was not truly able to contain the Phoenix. Prime was briefly possessed by the Phoenix Force while it was in the Malibu universe. Amber Hunt was possessed by the Phoenix Force while it was in the Malibu universe. Foxfire siphoned some of the energy from the Phoenix while it was in the Malibu universe, and has a small portion of the Phoenix Force bonded to her at a subatomic level. Quinion Quire reconstituted his body using a fragment of the shattered Phoenix Force when it came to Earth, but the Phoenix eventually left him to his sickness. CX-Men, Phoenix, Ensign Emma Frost. Emma briefly became the host for Phoenix. However, she was not truly able to contain the Phoenix due to not having Omega-level power. She does not consider herself a true avatar like Jean but rather a substitute for the wounded entity. Later, during the Avengers vs. X-Men storyline, she gets possessed by a fragment of the Phoenix once again after Iron Man and Giant Man try to destroy it. During a battle against the Avengers, her fragment is taken by Cyclops to double his own power from the Phoenix. Stepford Cuckoos possessed a fraction of the Phoenix Force that they had to imprison inside of their diamond hearts. Yet the Cuckoos later mysteriously lost their connection to the Phoenix fragment, as the fragment escapes their diamond hearts, leaving for parts unknown. Corvus, descendant of Rookshire, wielder of the Blade of the Phoenix. Currently the blade is powerless after the connection to the Phoenix fragment was somehow lost. Captain Marvel, resurrected by a fragment of the Phoenix Force. He later willingly allowed the Phoenix to reclaim the fragment, which killed him in the process. Cyclops, during the Avengers vs. X-Men storyline, he gets possessed by the Phoenix after Iron Man and Giant Man try to destroy it. He becomes Dark Phoenix after hosting all 5 fragments of the Phoenix Force, but Jean Grey's essence convinces him to let the Phoenix leave his body, as he is attacked by Hope Summers and the Scarlet Witch. Colossus, during the Avengers vs. X-Men storyline, he gets possessed by the Phoenix after Iron Man and Giant Man try to destroy it. He loses the Phoenix fragment after Spider-Man baits him and Magic into taking each other out. Magic, During the Avengers vs. X-Men storyline, she gets possessed by the Phoenix after Iron Man and Giant Man try to destroy it. She loses the Phoenix fragment after Spider-Man baits her and Colossus into taking each other out. Namor, during the Avengers vs. X-Men storyline, he became possessed by the Phoenix after Iron Man and Giant Man tried to destroy it. However, the fragment left him after Namor was defeated by the Avengers. Hope Summers, according to Cable and stated by the Scarlet Witch, the mutant messiah Hope Summers is part of the Phoenix Force itself, which could explain her resemblance with Jean Grey, and for that same reason, she could let its powers go. Together they have become the White Phoenix of the Crown. Other characters were only possessed by the Phoenix Force during out-of-continuity tales. This includes Nightcrawler, Storm, and Gabriel Summers, in separate what-if stories, as well as Cyclops in the X-Men/Teen Titans Intercompany crossover. Quinion Quire was revealed to be a host in the Here Comes Tomorrow storyline in the Visions of Deathlock, and in the timeline of Nocturne, the Phoenix Force possessed Colossus' soulless body and reshaped it into female form.
Powers and abilities.
The Phoenix Force has the ability to manipulate cosmic energies and to tap into the life force reserved for future generations, thus denying them existence. It can wield this energy to project beams of immense destructive force. It can transmigrate throughout time and space by folding its energy back into itself, causing it to collapse akin to a black hole and then reform itself upon reaching its destination. It can directly absorb energy such as Cyclops' optic blasts or even the entire energy of a sun. It is also capable of absorbing the energy and life force from a foe. As it is the nexus of all psionic energy, it has mental abilities of cosmic scope, including telepathy and telekinesis. The extent of the Phoenix Force's godlike abilities has not been fully clarified. Jean Grey as the White Phoenix of the Crown was able to change the future of the universe by reaching back in time and pushing her husband Cyclops to move on with his life. Another major display of the power of the Phoenix was during the Secret Wars 2, when the omnipotent Beyonder wanted to destroy all life. Rachel Summers, who served as the avatar of the Phoenix Force at that time, sought out to kill the Beyonder. The Beyonder expressed both amazement and disappointment to Rachel, claiming that she denies herself her own glory when she can be so much more. With that, the Beyonder gave Rachel the full access to the power of the Phoenix as well as some of his own. Rachel was on par with Jean Grey when she became Phoenix. With such power, Rachel was able to absorb the consciousness of every sentient mortal being in the universe. And when expelling the sum total of the power back at the Beyonder, the input felt overwhelming even to his senses. However, she was still stated as considerably below his level, that destroying the universe would not kill him, and simply not be lower than amoeba compared to him. Often the Phoenix seeks out hosts who have strong inherent psionic abilities so they can withstand its power. When the Phoenix Force enters a host, a small fragment of its power is left behind when it leaves. Even a small fragment can be stronger than an inexperienced host using the Phoenix Force's powers. As seen by Rachel Summers, who had full access to the Force, but her opponent Necrom threw moons at her with only a fragment. When bonded with a host, the Phoenix Force amplifies their abilities to incalculable levels. It can manipulate matter on a subatomic level and transmute elements, for example, turning wood to gold, stone to crystal, etc. It can teleport others across space and can also open interdimensional portals to instantaneously access distant locales of the universe. If an avatar of the Phoenix Force is harmed or killed, it will form an egg of cosmic power, incubate in the White Hot Room, and hatch out completely healed. Also, as one of the oldest cosmic beings, the Phoenix Force possesses a high level of cosmic awareness and prescience.
Other versions.
In the 31st century, in the Guardians of the Galaxy comics series, ordinary human Gyro of New Haven becomes host to the Phoenix Force. As Phoenix, Gyro is ready for a Phoenix host. Since he's an ordinary human with no magic or psionic abilities, only those powers granted him directly by the Phoenix Force. In the Age of Apocalypse reality, after Jean Grey's death at the hands of Havoc, nuclear bombs set to destroy America were suddenly destroyed by a bird-like display of fiery psionic power. It was Jean, awakened as a phoenix, known as Mutant Alpha, the legendary ultimate mutant. Sinister captured Phoenix and brainwashed her into becoming one of his Sinister Six. He then turned Phoenix against the X-Men, displaying the personality of Dark Phoenix. Phoenix generated so much heat that even Sunfire was nearly burned to death, but Psylocke used her psychic knife to bring her to her senses. Jean used the Phoenix Force to incinerate her former master, and became leader of the X-Men in Magneto's absence. The Phoenix is combined with DC Comics character kinetics to make Phonetics and Spider-Boy team up #1. Though the origins and history of Phoenix of Earth 9997 match that of her Earth 616 counterpart, the following information has been revealed by both 3D Man, Kyle Richmond, and the Watchman, X51. The Phoenix Force was originally a citizen of the first universe that existed prior to the Big Bang that created the current universe in which Earth 9997 resides. This original universe collapsed due to the manipulations and reproduction of the celestial race. There were a number of survivors who were referred to as the Elders of the Universe, the Phoenix Force being one of these elders. It was later revealed that the Elders plotted to reunify the fragmented universe, and all its parallel universe and alternate history counterparts, through the realm of the dead and with the aid of death. The Phoenix Force was a part of this plot to reverse the damage the Celestials had already created. It was foreseen that eventually death would be destroyed and that an Elder of the Universe would have to live in the realm of the dead in order to facilitate the collection of souls, which was at least one important step in reunifying the broken universe. As the Elders were all nearly immortal and could not die, the Phoenix Force had to bond itself to a being that would be capable of sacrificing itself for others. This being was Jean Grey of the X-Men, who during a mission in space was a lone pilot of a space shuttle traveling through a radiation storm while her comrades were in a shielded room. Unable to bond with the severely burned body of Jean Grey, it became a binary being with her, assuming her identity, personality and physical form and sealing her charred body in a cocoon to heal. When the shuttle crashed, the cocoon remained at the bottom of Jamaica Bay, and the Phoenix Force took Jean's place. Eventually the Phoenix sacrificed her life and the real Jean Grey returned. The Phoenix ended up in Death's realm, still in the guise of Jean Grey, and was one of the few beings in this realm that were aware that they were indeed dead. Citizens in the realm of the dead believe that they and those are around them are still alive, while others who are not present are deceased. She eventually joined up with Marvel's army to battle Death and her army. During this time, Scott Summers, new Mr. S, leader of the X-Men, who was assisting Marvel in the land of the living, was able to establish a mental rapport with the Phoenix. Although the real Jean Grey still lived on Earth 9997, Scott always referred to the Phoenix as Jean and kept him informed as to the goings-on in the realm of the dead and, later, Marvel's Paradise. This soon became a great aid to Reed Richards and others who were trying to determine why the mortally wounded would no longer die following Death's death. After the creation of Marvel's Paradise, Phoenix became one of the Avenging Host, a group of former champions who were transmogrified by technology once belonging to the High Evolutionary. They were to act as guardian angels to those in paradise and help those in the realm of the dead realize that they were indeed dead so that they could travel over to paradise and live out their perfect afterlife. During her time as one of the Avenging Host, its members began to doubt Mar-Vell's intentions, believing that he was aware that he had no idea what occurred outside paradise, that as it grew it threatened to consume the negative zone. Their doubts in Mar-Vell's quest were further strengthened when they began to realize that no new dead were appearing in Death's former realm. Phoenix would relay this information to Scott Summers, prompting the heroes of Earth 9997 to seek out Jude, the entropic man, to become the new Death. When Cap, 3D Man, Comet Man, Benny Bexley and Thanos learned that each paradise created for the realm's citizens were simply wish fulfillment, the Avenging Host aided in freeing each citizen from their private heaven and resolved to confront Mar-Vell about his intentions. The Host, and Rick Jones, were all summoned and put on trial by Mar-Vell. Confronted by Mar-Vell with Captain America, Phoenix and the rest of the Host were killed by their leader when Cap refused to take Mar-Vell's power. Shortly after their death, the Kree army invaded Paradise and a large battle erupted. During the combat, Reed Richards arrived from the negative zone and confronted Mar-Vell himself. During their talk, Mar-Vell resurrected the Avenging Host to aid the citizens of Paradise defeat the Kree invaders. After the battle's conclusion, Reed Richards being given the cosmic consciousness and Mar-Vell leaving Paradise, Phoenix's current whereabouts are unknown. It is presumable that she remains in Paradise guarding those who have chosen to remain in this realm. In a reality similar to the Marvel Mangaverse, the Phoenix Force is not just an entity, but a weapon. The Phoenix Sword, as it was called, was guarded and wielded by the sorceress Madeline Pyre, who inherited the sword from her mother. When Madeline's time as wielder of the sword was nearly up, she trained little sister Gina in the arts of fighting and magic. When the reality's version of Shadow King stole the Phoenix Sword, Gina tried to get it back, and Shadow King stabbed her with the sword. But in doing so, he inadvertently passed the powers of the Phoenix Sword to the dying Gina, who became the Phoenix Force's first host. She used the powers of Phoenix to vanquish Shadow King, and is now the guardian of her dimension. Phoenix appears in the Marvel Zombies 2 miniseries. The zombie survivors of the first series, who now possess the powers of Galactus, have been joined by other cosmic-level zombies, including an unnamed Dark Phoenix who appears to be Jean Grey. She is responsible, along with the others, for eating most of the sentient life in the universe. A long trip back to Earth and a delaying action fought by the last human colony leads to Jean and the others regaining their sense of morality and control over their own hunger. In fighting to defend the colony, Jean is destroyed by the hunger-crazed Hulk. In the Ultimate Universe, Jean Grey was placed in a mental institute after she began hearing voices and seeing visions of an omnipotent Phoenix god. After her release, she later thought she had contacted a celestial god entity which destroyed worlds. As a result, the Hellfire Club believed that it would be in their best interests to summon the Phoenix and merge it with Jean Grey via a ritual. With Jean acting as the Phoenix Force's human avatar, she would be worshipped in a greater world. While the ritual was successful, the Phoenix had different plans and promptly slew the Hellfire Club. In the Ultimate X-Men, Hellfire and Brimstone arc, the Phoenix Force makes its first appearance as the entity personality within Jean's body. Subsequently, Jean managed to gain some control over Phoenix, though not without using dangerous amounts of its power and causing extreme destruction. In the process, She telekinetically lifted a massive land and atomized it, destroyed a helicopter and 10 men within, created a giant phoenix raptor, and subdued a woman named Spiral. Charles Xavier was confronted by Lilendra Ramani, the leader of a religious group known as the Church of Shire Enlightenment, who worship a god known as the Phoenix. Lilendra claims that the Phoenix god is the force that created life itself, first creating the stars, planets, as well as everything else in the universe. Many millennia later, the Phoenix created life forms on those planets and watched them grow and prosper. However, as time went by, the civilizations grew more advanced and sophisticated, and soon became jealous of the Phoenix. They wanted its raw, unimaginable, and limitless power for themselves. Soon after, the inhabitants of the planets waged war upon the Phoenix, trying to control it, as well as its power. They amassed a great army, bringing together 100 civilizations. But the Phoenix fought strongly for thousands of years until the life forms found a way to imprison it since it could not be killed. But as conventional methods could not imprison it, they created a vortex to suck in the asteroids and planets around it, creating a spherical cage, but at a cost. The Phoenix would be trapped in it forever. As the millennia went by, the Phoenix Force's cage began to evolve. Oceans formed, mountains rose, plants grew and life forms began to sprout upon it. Soon those life forms evolved into humans and the cage in which the Phoenix resided became known as Earth. The Shire Church believed that the Phoenix was the very core of the planet. As a result of their meeting, Lilendra asks for permission to study Jean Grey to determine whether or not she truly is the embodiment of the Phoenix Force. During the examination, the Phoenix entity apparently asserts itself in an evil form but is seemingly suppressed by Professor Xavier's more experienced psychic powers and his emotional outreach to Jean Grey's normal personality. After the suppression of what seems to be the Phoenix Force, Lilendra and Charles are informed by Gerald, Lilendra's assistant, that Jean's test has proven to be negative. Gerald also reveals that Jean Grey's parents have a connection to the Shire Church and postulates that Jean's subconscious has manifested a false Phoenix persona after being subjected to Phoenix Force stories in her youth. Feeling that she has lost her mind, Jean slips into a depressed state and begins seeing green creatures latched onto her body. However, it is then revealed to the reader that Jean has actually tested positive as a carrier of the Phoenix Force and Gerald has covered it up under orders from his actual superiors, the Hellfire Club. Jean soon learned to control the powers of the Phoenix more and more. When Apocalypse prepared to kill Xavier, Jean accepts the Phoenix, creating a humanoid fiery entity whose power was able to bring down the ancient being. She alters reality completely and resets time to undo the damage done by Apocalypse and supposedly by Professor Xavier. In Ultimate X-Men /Fantastic Four Annual Number 1, a teenage Franklin Richards is shown to be host to the Phoenix, and a member of that timeline's X-Men. In Marvel 1602, Jean, who disguised herself as a man in this series, dies of sickness on Carlos Javier's ship. As a funeral, this version of Angel carries Jean's corpse into the sky, where 1602 Cyclops tearfully burns her to ashes with his eye beams. The fire briefly formed a shape similar to the Phoenix before vanishing. The Phoenix has been the subject of What If on a number of occasions. The timeline shown in What If? V2, number 32 and number 32 diverged from the main timeline just before the Phoenix dies. Rather than committing suicide, the Phoenix was given a psychic lobotomy by the Shire and returned to Earth with the X-Men, to live as Jean Grey. Phoenix and Cyclops got married, and Phoenix gave birth to Rachel Summers. Phoenix refused Magneto's offer to restore her powers, not wanting to become a monster again, but eventually regained her powers during an encounter with Mastermind. In a fit of despair, Phoenix then killed the real Jean Grey, who was still lying in stasis at the bottom of the sea. When the rest of the X-Men discovered that Jean had become the Phoenix again, she left them to be alone, but returned to save them from an attack by the Sentinels. Scott and Phoenix reconciled, but Destiny told Phoenix that she only saw death in her future if she tried to remain among mortals, and so the Phoenix left the Earth to wander the universe alone. The timeline shown in What If? V2, number 79 diverged from the main reality on the fateful day when the X-Men's shuttle passed through cosmic radiation during re-entry to Earth. Jean Grey had been knocked out and could no longer pilot anymore. So it was Storm who volunteered to steer the capsule with her elemental powers. However, she was not as successful as Jean, and all of the X-Men, except for Wolverine, died during the crash. Storm seemingly survived and emerged from the wreckage as Storm Phoenix, now displaying absolute control over all aspects of the weather. She erected a benevolent dictatorship on Earth, drawing young mutants to her side and freezing the super beings who opposed her in the atmosphere. As she grew more cruel and detached from humanity, the remaining heroes, as well as her acolyte, Kitty, and her mentor, Ahadi, hatched a plan to get rid of her. They examined the space capsule and found the real Storm, who had been placed in a healing cocoon and submerged in the Hudson Bay. Kitty took over her body and they confronted Storm Phoenix as the fake she was. Shocked back to its senses, the Phoenix left Earth, but the real Storm died in the process. The What If special for X-Men, Rise and Fall of the Shire Empire looks at what would have happened if Vulcan had inherited the powers of Phoenix via the Mkron crystal. In this reality, it was Vulcan who ended up inside the Mkron crystal. Instead of Professor X through the Mkron crystal, Vulcan ascends to the White Hot Room where he meets the Phoenix Corps, one of them being Kid Omega, who says that Vulcan does not belong there. Vulcan takes Kid Omega's powers. He slays all the Phoenix Corps, taking all their powers along. He goes out of the crystal and takes the pieces of the Phoenix Force out of Rachel and Corvus. Wielding supposedly the full Phoenix Force, he soon destroys the Shire Empire, Xavier, Nightcrawler, Polaris, Warpath, Darwin, the Starjammers, Gladiator and Lilandra. Only Rachel and Havoc survive, because they escape through a teleportation portal that mysteriously appears next to them. They are not sure who or what caused a Stargate to seemingly open. Then Vulcan destroys 1/3 of the Annihilation Wave along with Anhelios himself. Nova pleads to Ronan the Accuser to escape. However, like he did to the Shire Empire, Vulcan destroys the Kree Empire. The Watchers comment that the Phoenix consumed a galaxy. It was the 7th galaxy to fall. Rachel and Havoc arrived at Earth and with Cyclops and Cable engage Vulcan. The match takes place in the island that was turned to pieces, Krakoa. However, apparently wielding the Phoenix Force holds no limits to what it can do, as Krakoa is now alive and intact. However, as the battle erupts, Vulcan begins to lose control. Rachel warns Gabriel that the Phoenix Force reacts poorly to negative emotions. The consequences of losing total control will not only consume himself but the entire reality. Finally letting go of the rage and hate he holds, he proceeds to halt his rampage and accept his death. Then all the actions are revealed. It is none other than Jean Grey who is the White Phoenix of the Crown. It was Jean that opened the teleportation portal so Rachel and Havoc could escape to Earth. She also shows Gabriel that wielding the ultimate power will not give him what he truly wanted, being loved. After his death, Vulcan is shown as a child once again, and he goes to the white hot room where he's comforted by Jean. She jokingly tells him that she always had a soft spot for Summer's men. Note: all the actions are narrated by the Mkron Crystal's guardian Jeff.
Crossovers.
Phoenix has appeared in the following intercompany crossovers. Dark Phoenix teamed up with Darkseid in the Teen Titans X-Men crossover between DC and Marvel Comics' respective teams. This story was made by Chris Claremont, Walt Simonson and Terry Austin in 1983. This story follows Darkseid conversing with Metron for the anti-life equation at the edge of the universe. Metron and Darkseid make a deal, and Dark Phoenix becomes part of that equation. The Teen Titans try to stop Darkseid, with the help of the X-Men, who later go head-to-head with Deathstroke the Terminator. The Dark Phoenix breaks free from Darkseid's grasp, is briefly hosted by Cyclops, and eventually dies again. The team-up is generally considered non-canonical by fans. With good reason, as unless stated otherwise by the companies themselves, intercompany crossovers generally take place outside of the normal continuity. The Phoenix Force was transported to the Ultraverse where it possessed the pyrokinetic Ultra Amber Hand. The X-Men, Ultra Force, Exiles, and numerous other characters team up to stop the Phoenix from destroying the world.
In other media,
The Phoenix displaying its power via Jean Grey in the X-Men animated series. The entire saga of the Phoenix is retold and adapted in the third season of the X-Men animated series, subdivided into the 5-part Phoenix saga, in which Jean acquires the power of the Phoenix and the battle for the Mkron Crystal occurs, and the Dark Phoenix saga, showcasing the battle with the Hellfire Club, the Phoenix Force's transformation into Dark Phoenix, and the battle to decide her fate. These particular episodes are as close as the cartoon came to directly duplicating the comic book storylines. The Dark Phoenix saga is so accurate to the original stories that the episodes have the additional credit, based on stories by Chris Claremont. Notably, however, as the Phoenix Force retcon had occurred before the creation of the series, the episodes were made with this change in mind, rather than having Jean develop her powers independently, as was the original intent of the comics, or be replaced by the Cosmic Phoenix Force entity. As events were later retconned, the two concepts were merged into Jean's actual body being possessed by the Phoenix Force, leading to a true struggle between two independent entities. Jean is shown piloting a shuttle, and when her telekinetic shield fails, Phoenix enters her body. Rather than destroying an inhabited system, which was the cause for the decision to kill off the character in the comics, the animated story had her destroy a deserted system and only disable the attacking Shire cruiser. These changes made it possible for aspects of the original ending of Uncanny X-Men number 137, in which Jean survives, to be used. Jean does still commit suicide, taking control of the Shire's laser beam to fire on herself, rather than finding an ancient weapon, but with her death, the Phoenix Force is purified, and then uses its powers to resurrect Jean, drawing on the combined life force of the assembled X-Men to bring her back to life. Jean retained her original basic powers, whereas in the aborted comic book ending, she would have been lobotomized by the Shire and lost them entirely. She was voiced by Catherine Disher. The Phoenix Force makes a cameo in the last episode of X-Men, Evolution. During a confrontation with Professor X, now a Horseman of Apocalypse, the Phoenix briefly forms from the shield Jean made during their psychic battle. Following Apocalypse's defeat, her other cameo is part of Professor Xavier's glimpse of the future, and shows Jean Grey screaming out as she becomes the Phoenix. the Phoenix makes an appearance in Wolverine and the X-Men. In this series, the Phoenix Force is an entity that has afflicted psychic mutants since the Homo superior race first appeared. It enters the host at birth, growing with it. Once it reaches maturity, the Phoenix Force takes over its host, going on to cause mass destruction. It is revealed that it is Jean who causes the explosion as she transforms into the Phoenix. Initially, Emma's original intent was to use the Stepford cuckoos to lure the Phoenix out of Jean's body to prevent any damage. However, the Hellfire Club revealed their intention to take the power for themselves. Betrayed, Frost, Jean and Cyclops fight the Phoenix and Emma seemingly sacrifices herself to stop it by absorbing the Phoenix into her body, turning into her diamond form, then shattering herself into pieces. Thus the Phoenix Force seemingly vanishes without a host. The Phoenix makes a brief appearance in Marvel Anime, X-Men. In the first episode, the Phoenix is manipulated by the Hellfire Club into becoming Dark Phoenix. When the X-Men are powerless to save her, Jean kills herself to stop Dark Phoenix. Famke Janssen plays Jean Grey in 3 movies, beginning with X-Men. During the film, Jean uses Cerebro for the first time, which causes strain on her mind and abilities. Later, she is affected by Magneto's machine, which enhances the mutant gene in humans. In the second film, X2, X-Men United, Jean Grey's powers have been evolving since the Liberty Island incident in the first movie. As Jean Grey uses her powers, a fiery aura appears in her eyes. In the climax of the movie, she is engulfed in a fiery aura as she holds back a tsunami of water from a burst dam to save the other X-Men. In the final scene, a giant flying fiery bird can be seen reflected in the water. In the third X-Men movie, X-Men: The Last Stand, Jean becomes Dark Phoenix. Jean is the only known Class 5 mutant. At a young age, Xavier, using his mutant psionic powers, built several psychic barriers in her mind to isolate her powers from her conscious mind, as her mutation was seated in the unconscious part of her mind, and as such she could not control her near-infinite abilities. This causes a split in Jean's psyche, between Jean Grey and the Phoenix, what her dual personality calls itself, with Jean, whose limited powers were always in her control, and the dormant side, the Phoenix, a purely instinctual creature. During the movie, Jean and the Phoenix battle for dominance. Jean tells Wolverine she thinks she killed Scott, although this is never confirmed. Phoenix destroys Xavier and joins Magneto. Jean Phoenix abstains from a battle on Alcatraz until the military reinforcements show up and try to shoot her. Phoenix, enraged, then gains full control and in her fury demolishes the island, ripping it and everything on it apart on the molecular level. Wolverine climbs his way to Jean while his flesh is peeled from his adamantium-covered bones, his healing factor being the only thing keeping him alive. When he reaches Jean, he calls to her, but there is only the Phoenix and it shows contempt for his actions. Phoenix asks Logan if he would die for the rest of humanity, to which he tells her that he would only die for her and that he loves her. His heartfelt words pull Jean to the fore. She asks him to save her. He stabs her with his claws, killing her and ending the destruction. Jean's tombstone lies on the X-Mansion ground, beside the markers of Scott and Xavier. Jean Grey appears as Phoenix in the X-Men Mutant Academy games for the Sony PlayStation under the codename Phoenix. In X-Men: Next Dimension, several of Jean Grey's powers take base from the Phoenix. The game also includes the Dark Phoenix separately as an unlockable bonus character. Her attacks are mainly related to the Phoenix Force itself. In the hidden cutscene The Fury of Dark Phoenix, It is revealed that after Jean Grey Phoenix successfully defeats Bastion on Asteroid M, Cyclops will transport to Asteroid M. Before Cyclops and Jean Grey can reunited, Bastion shoots a laser beam at Cyclops, which knocks him outside of Asteroid M into space, instantly killing him. This dramatic event forced the Dark Phoenix to manifest in Jean Grey. As a Dark Phoenix, she screams out Bastion. Before destroying Asteroid M, which destroys Bastion and presumably killing Wolverine and Magneto, who were also on Asteroid M. From the X-Mansion, Professor Xavier senses the Dark Phoenix. She then transforms into her fiery bird form and destroys the moon, and then proceeds to go on a rampage. In Spider-Man 2, enter Electro. A costume called Spider Phoenix represents Spider-Man as host of the Phoenix Force, though Spider-Man cannot use Phoenix's powers in-game. In X-Men Legends, Jean Grey also appears as a playable character. One of her alternate costumes is a green and yellow gold Phoenix costume. Her extreme attack is Phoenix Force. In X-Men Legends 2, Rise of Apocalypse, Jean Grey, who is a playable character, has some attacks related to the Phoenix Force, such as the ability to resurrect another character during gameplay, and the player can also select for her both the original and Dark Phoenix costumes. In addition to Jean Grey, the PlayStation Portable version of this game also includes the Dark Phoenix separately as an unlockable bonus character. Her attacks are mainly related to the Phoenix Force itself, and is arguably the most powerful playable character in the game. In Marvel Ultimate Alliance, the Dark Phoenix made an appearance in the ending of the game if the player chooses to save Nightcrawler instead of saving Jean in Mephisto's realm. Since Jean Grey does not die in the Infinity Vortex, she will return to Earth in the form of the Dark Phoenix to take vengeance upon those who did not save her. In Marvel Ultimate Alliance 2, Jean Grey is playable, and has her Phoenix costume as her primary outfit. 2 of her 4 power attacks take base from the Phoenix, resulting in fire mixing with telekinesis, and a massive fire blast. Jean Grey appears as Phoenix as a playable character in the crossover fighting game Marvel vs. Capcom 3, Fate of Two Worlds. She has the ability to resurrect herself as the Dark Phoenix. Jean Grey appears as Phoenix as a playable character in the Adobe Flash Network game Marvel Avengers Alliance. Her special abilities take base from the Phoenix. Also, during the game's third special operation, inspired by the Avengers vs. X-Men storyline, the Phoenix Force is hosted by Colossus, Cyclops, Emma Frost, Magik and Jean Grey herself, as a Dark Phoenix. The game's Phoenix 5, which has Jean as their 5th member, while the original storyline has Namor as the 5th host, can either be the player's allies or enemies depending on which side the player chooses in the conflict.